In the heart of a rain-drenched city lived a man named Arthur who had spent 7 years sitting at the same oak desk, staring at a blank notebook. He was a master of the invisible architecture of someday and a genius at finding reasons why today was not the right time. Arthur believed that before he could begin his life's work, he needed a bridge to be built, a certain amount of money in the bank, a specific degree of expertise, and a sign from the universe that the path was clear. He was waiting for a barrier to move that he didn't realize he had built with his own thoughts. One evening, while walking through a neglected park, he saw an old man named Silas sitting on a stone bench, carving a piece of driftwood with a dull pot. Silas was blind in one eye, and his hands shook with the weight of 80 winters. Yet the figure emerging from the wood was breathtaking. Arthur stopped and asked how he had the courage to start such a delicate task with such limited tools and failing sight. Silas didn't look up, but he smiled and told Arthur that the greatest trick the mind ever plays is convincing us that there is a wall in front of the door. He said that most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect conditions to arrive, but the truth is that the conditions only become perfect once you are already moving. Arthur realized that he was treating his dreams like a destination he had to be invited to rather than a territory he had to claim. He went home that night and looked at his blank notebook, not with the eyes of a perfectionist, but with the eyes of a builder. The solution he found was the rule of the first messy step. He understood that the barrier he felt was actually just the friction of his own stillness. Logic told him that if he waited until he felt ready, he would be waiting until he was in his grave, because readiness is a myth manufactured by fear. He began to write, and for the first time he didn't care if the words were beautiful or if the logic was flawless. He simply allowed the ink to flow. The motivation of Arthur's story is the realization that the starting line is wherever you are standing right now. There is no secret key and there is no gatekeeper holding you back. The barrier is a ghost that disappears the moment you walk through it. Arthur's life changed not because he found a solution, but because he realized he was the solution. He stopped asking for permission from a world that wasn't even watching and started giving himself the command to move. The transformation was brutal and honest because it stripped away his excuses and left him with nothing but his own potential. He proved that the only difference between a dreamer and a creator is that the creator is willing to be imperfect, while the dreamer is still waiting for the sun to hit the right angle. The lesson for you today is that the path does not appear until you take the first step, and the strength you think you lack is actually waiting for you a mile down the road. You don't need a better plan, you need a shorter fuse on your hesitation. The barrier does not exist, and the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the false belief that you aren't ready to begin. Arthur spent the next few months discovering that the true enemy of progress was not a lack of talent, but the addiction to the feeling of being prepared. He realized that every hour he spent researching and planning was actually a sophisticated form of procrastination designed to protect him from the possibility of failing. He saw that the world is full of people who are brilliantly prepared for a life they will never actually start. Silas the woodcarver had taught him that the wood doesn't tell you what it wants to be until you make the first cut, and the same was true for his own destiny. Arthur decided to embrace the chaos of the beginning, and he stopped looking for a map, because he realized that he was the one drawing it as he walked. The pain of his past stagnation began to dissolve as he replaced it with the friction of real work. He found that the anxiety which had paralyzed him for 7 years only existed in the space between thinking and doing. Once he was in motion, the fear had no place to sit. The motivation for anyone watching this is to understand that the wall you think is blocking your path is actually a shadow cast by your own hesitation. If you turn on the light of action, the shadow vanishes. Arthur's life transformed because he stopped negotiating with his fear and started giving it orders. He realized that the perfect moment is a ghost that haunts the graveyard of unfulfilled dreams. He moved from being a spectator of his own potential to being the protagonist of his own reality. The solution was not a secret formula or a lucky break, but the brutal and simple decision to be a beginner. He accepted that his first attempts would be clumsy and that his initial results would be humble, but he also knew that a messy start is infinitely more powerful than a perfect standstill. The barrier does not exist because the universe does not care if you are ready. It only responds when you are relentless. Arthur proved that the only thing you truly need to start is the willingness to be seen trying. The story ends with a challenge to you, which is to stop waiting for the gate to open when there are no fences. Take the step and let the path worry about showing up. The vibe shift happens when you realize that you aren't waiting for the world to give you a chance, you are waiting for yourself to take it. Arthur realized that the silence of his room was no longer a cage, but a workshop where the only thing that mattered was the rhythm of his own effort. He understood that the reason people never start is that they are obsessed with the middle and the end, without ever respecting the mess of the beginning. He saw that the world is crowded with critics who have perfect plans, but empty hands, and he refused to be one of them. Silas had taught him that the wood doesn't fight the knife. Once the first cut is made and life is exactly the same, it yields to the person who is brave enough to be a beginner. The pain of the past years wasn't a waste, it was the fuel for his newfound urgency because he knew exactly what it felt like to be dead while still breathing. The motivation for you today is to recognize that your excuses are just sophisticated lies, told by your fear to keep you safe in a life that is too small for you. Arthur's transformation was complete the moment he stopped looking for a sign and started being the signal. He realized that the barrier was never made of brick or stone, but of 1,000 tiny hesitations that had calcified into a wall of not yet. He shattered that wall by simply doing the work that was right in front of him without asking if it was important or if it would lead to fame. The solution is to kill the part of you that needs to know the ending before you agree to play the game. Arthur proved that the only thing standing between a human being and their destiny is the false belief that they need more than they already have. The story ends with the quiet power of a man who finally belongs to himself because he stopped waiting for an invitation to his own life. The vibe shift is the moment you realize that the door has been unlocked this entire time and you were the only one holding it shut. Stop overthinking the depth of the water and just jump, because the only way to learn how to swim is to leave the shore behind. Your life starts the second you decide that the barrier does not exist and that you are the only one who can give the order to march. Let's talk about Arthur, and maybe let's talk about you. Arthur was, for a long time, what you might call stuck. He had a decent job, a comfortable apartment, and a routine so predictable you could set a watch by it. Wake up, coffee, work, TV, sleep, repeat. On the surface, everything was fine, but underneath, a quiet storm was brewing. A feeling of, is this it? He had dreams, big ones, tucked away like old photos in a dusty album. He wanted to paint, to travel, to build something with his own hands. But the comfort of his routine was a warm, heavy blanket, and the world outside seemed cold and uncertain. Fear was his silent roommate, whispering doubts in his ear every time he picked up a paintbrush or looked at a world map. You're not good enough, it would say. It's too late. What if you fail? And so, the dreams stayed in the album, gathering dust. This isn't just Arthur's story, is it? So many of us live inside these self-made comfort zones. They're not prisons with bars and locks. They're more like cozy living rooms with the doors wide open. We know we can leave, but the sofa is just so comfortable, and we know exactly what's on TV tonight. The unknown is scary. The possibility of failure feels like a monster lurking just outside the door, so we stay. We tell ourselves it's practical, it's sensible. We trade the vibrant, unpredictable colors of our potential for the safe, muted gray of certainty. We become masters of the status quo, champions of good enough. But that little voice, that is this it? Question, it never truly goes away. It just gets quieter, a little sadder, a little more resigned with each passing year. One Tuesday, something shifted for Arthur. It wasn't a dramatic movie-like event. No lightning strike, no sudden inheritance. He was just looking at his reflection in the black screen of his TV before turning it on, and he saw a stranger, a tired stranger with familiar eyes. And in that moment, he realized his fear of failure was nothing compared to the fear of reaching the end of his life and seeing that same stranger. Full of regret, he was more afraid of the what if than the what if I fail. That night, Arthur didn't turn on the TV. He went to his closet, pulled out an old, dusty box, and took out his grandfather's easel. He set it up in the middle of his living room. It looked awkward and out of place, a disruption to his perfectly ordered world. And that's exactly what it was. It was a declaration of war against his comfort zone. The first step is always the hardest, and for Arthur, it was terrifying. He squeezed a blob of blue paint onto the palette. His hand trembled. The voice of fear was screaming now. You're making a mess. You don't know what you're doing. People will laugh. He almost packed it all away, but then he remembered the stranger in the TV screen. He took a deep breath, dipped his brush in the paint, and made a single, messy, imperfect blue streak across the blank canvas. It wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't even a good start, but it was a start. And in that moment, something incredible happened. The world didn't end. The building didn't collapse. The fear, which had seemed like a giant monster, suddenly looked a little smaller, a little less powerful. It was just a voice, and he had just proven it wrong. He could make a mark. That single blue streak became a nightly ritual. Arthur didn't quit his job. He didn't sell all his possessions. He just dedicated 1 hour every evening to his canvas. Some nights, he painted for the full hour, losing himself in colors and shapes. Other nights, he'd just stare at it, paralyzed by doubt, but he always showed up. He learned that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. He was building a new muscle, the muscle of action. With every brushstroke, he was rewiring his brain, teaching it that the outcome wasn't the point. The process was the act of showing up for his dream, even in a small way, was the victory. Slowly, his living room transformed. Canvases started to lean against the walls, filled with clumsy but passionate attempts at capturing the world he saw in his head. His apartment was messier, less predictable, and for the first time in years, it felt truly alive. This tiny change started a ripple effect. Once you prove to yourself that you can face down one fear, the others don't seem so intimidating. Arthur started saying yes to other things. A weekend hiking trip with a colleague he barely knew, a cooking class, even though he was famous for burning toast. He started talking to strangers in coffee shops. Each yes was a small step out of his comfort zone, and each step expanded his world just a little bit more. He realized his potential wasn't a destination he had to reach. It was a path he was creating with every step he took. The fear was still there, of course. It never completely disappears. But now, it was like a backseat driver he'd learned to ignore. He was in control, holding the map, choosing the direction. One day, the owner of his local coffee shop saw a photo of one of his paintings on his phone. "You painted that?" she asked, amazed. Could you paint something for the wall here?" Arthur's first instinct was to say no. The fear roared back to life. What if they hate it? What if it's not good enough for a public space? But then he looked at the collection of paintings filling his apartment. They were proof. They were evidence of his journey. They were messy and imperfect and full of life, just like him. He took a deep breath and said, "Yes, I'd love to." He painted a vibrant sunrise, full of bold oranges and purples. It wasn't technically perfect, but it was honest. It was a reflection of his own awakening. When he hung it on the coffee shop wall, people noticed. They didn't critique his brushwork. They talked about how it made them feel hopeful, energized. It started conversations. Arthur, the quiet man who used to hide behind his routine, found himself talking to people about art, about dreams, about taking chances. He wasn't just Arthur the office worker anymore. He was Arthur the artist. Not because he was selling paintings for thousands of dollars, but because he was expressing the part of himself he had kept hidden for so long. He was living a bigger, more colorful life, one he was actively designing. He even booked a flight, a one-way ticket to a country he'd only ever seen on a map. He didn't have a full plan, and that was the most exciting part. Arthur's story isn't about becoming a world-famous artist or a millionaire entrepreneur. It's about reclaiming your own life from the quiet tyranny of fear and comfort. It's about the profound power of one small step. What's your blue streak? What's the one small, imperfect action you can take tonight to challenge your routine? Maybe it's writing one paragraph of that book you've been dreaming of. Maybe it's lacing up your running shoes and just walking around the block. Maybe it's looking up a language class online. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be a start, because your potential isn't a locked treasure chest. It's a garden. It won't grow on its own. You have to show up. You have to water it. You have to pull the weeds of doubt, even when you don't feel like it. So look at your life right now. Is your comfort zone serving you, or is it suffocating you? Are you living the life you chose, or the one that just happened? You have a canvas in front of you. It might be blank, it might be messy, but it's yours. You hold the brush. Fear will always be there, whispering that you should put it down. Don't listen. Pick a color, any color, and make your mark. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Start today. Start now. Your masterpiece is waiting to be created. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to take that first step. Follow for more stories that hopefully inspire you to live your most vibrant life. Arthur reached the final summit of his realization when he understood that the barrier was actually his own comfort zone disguised as a logical reason to wait. He saw that the mind creates these obstacles to protect us from the vulnerability of being a beginner, but in doing so, it kills the very essence of being alive. Silas, the woodcarver, had shown him that the beauty of the statue is found in the chips of wood that are thrown away, and Arthur realized that he had to throw away his old identity to become the man he was meant to be. The pain of the past was no longer a shadow, but a bright light that showed him exactly where he had been lying to himself for 7 years. The solution was the brutal honesty of looking at his blank notebook and realizing that a single bad sentence was more valuable than 1,000 perfect thoughts that never left his head. He found that the universe does not reward the thinker, it rewards the doer, and that the only way to gain clarity is through the friction of engagement. The motivation for you at this very second is to stop treating your life like a problem to be solved and start treating it like a journey to be walked. Arthur's transformation was absolute because he stopped looking for a bridge and started building one with the very stones people had thrown at him. He proved that the only thing standing between a human being and their ultimate evolution is the false belief that they need someone else to say, go. The barrier does not exist because you are the one who built it, and you are the only one who can walk through it as if it were smoke. The story ends with the quiet power of a man who finally understands that the starting line is the only place where the magic happens. Because it is the only place where you have to be brave. The vibe shift is the moment you realize that you do need a map, because the path is created by your own footsteps, and you do need a reason because your existence is the only reason you will ever need. Take the step and let the horizon be your guide, because the universe always opens up for the soul that refuses to be stopped by a wall that was never there. Arthur reached the absolute peak of his realization when he understood that the silence of his past was not a void, but a classroom that had finally taught him its last lesson. The only thing more painful than starting and failing is the quiet, slow-burning agony of never starting at all. He looked back at the oak desk one final time and saw it not as a place of work, but as a monument to the lies he had told himself to stay safe. Silas the woodcarver had shown him that the wood does not fear the knife. It only fears the rut that comes from being left alone in the dark. Arthur took this truth and forged a life where waiting was no longer a part of his vocabulary. The pain of his stagnation was replaced by the exhilarating friction of being in the arena, where the dust and the sweat were the only evidence he needed that he was finally alive. The solution was the brutal and beautiful realization that perfection is a cage, and the only key is a messy, imperfect, and courageous first step. He found that the universe does not reward those who have the best plans, but those who have the most momentum. The motivation for you at this very second is to stop treating your life like a problem to be solved and start treating it like a territory to be conquered. Arthur's transformation was absolute because he shifted his identity from a spectator to a creator. Moving from the shadows of not shed into the blinding light of right now, he proved that the only thing standing between a human being and their ultimate evolution is the false comfort of their own hesitation. The barrier does not exist because you are the one who invented it, and you are the only one who can walk through it as if it were smoke. The story ends with the quiet power of a man who finally understands that the starting line is the only place where true magic happens, because it is the only place where you are required to be brave. The vibe shift is the moment you realize that you need a map, because the path is created by your own footsteps, and you don't need a reason because your existence is the only permission you will ever need. Take the step and let the horizon be your guide, because the universe always opens up for the soul that refuses to be stopped by a wall that was never there. Your time is coming. Keep believing. Keep fighting. Don't just watch. Go out and prove them wrong. Thank you for being part of the journey. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.